I saw Michael standing there. Diddy was laughing, and the baby was begging for it to stop.
At precisely 8:41 a.m. in courtroom 7 of the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Manhattan, silence took on a physical weight. The 31st day of the Sean Combs, aka Diddy, trial had started like every other, lawyers rustling papers, media crews preparing live streams, the audience settling into routine tension. But then the rear door opened. A woman entered, wrapped in a black silk scarf, unannounced, alone. Janet Jackson, sister of Michael Jackson, walked in and quietly sat in the witness row. No one expected her to speak. For years, she had remained loyal to her family, never once opposing them publicly. Yet, 11 minutes later, the judge ordered jurors out and media cameras off. A federal assistant handed over a sealed file. Then came the declaration, voluntary testimony, public record, no anonymity. Janet stood, trembling. Her voice, however, did not waver. I saw Michael standing there. Diddy was laughing. And the baby was begging for it to stop. I can't stay silent any longer. The courtroom froze, 18 seconds of dead silence, broken only by the sound of jaws tightening and lungs failing to exhale. She continued, I'm not here to defend anyone. Not my family. Not myself. Just the truth. Then came the revelation that shattered the courtroom. Parties at Neverland, attended not only by celebrities but also athletes, politicians, and girls, some underage, brought in by limo, separated, and asked to sign consent to film forms. But the worst part wasn't the filming. It was the purpose. Those tapes weren't for show, they were for control. For blackmail. Janet described wandering into a hidden control room under the main house, discovering hard drives labeled JJ07, NE12DW7. She didn't dare open them until Diddy became the target of a federal probe. Then she submitted the drives to the FBI, 48 hours of footage across 6 years, featuring at least 31 public figures. Her voice broke only once, recounting the image of Michael whispering to Diddy, that one didn't cry today, his face ghostly white. An examiner confirmed the tapes matched FBI evidence and unveiled international storage networks and offshore transaction trails. The courtroom chilled, more from what was said than any thermostat. A music historian sobbed into his desk. A variety journalist fled the room. But Janet kept going. She told of a 2005 night when Michael and Diddy brought in investors. A girl was drugged and assaulted. Janet didn't know her name. But she remembered her face, and she asked the court to help find her. They are victims. I was a bystander. One sealed tape showed a 4-hour party, 17 attendees, including 2 deceased stars and 5 still in the business. Janet said she remembered every face, every look. When Diddy's lawyer demanded, "Can you confirm there was no consent?" Janet shot back, "I can confirm no one volunteered to be filmed while drunk and unaware." At 10:09 a.m., she ended with a line that would echo across headlines, "I've been silenced for too long. But today, I reclaim my voice for myself and for those who cannot speak." From that moment forward, the Diddy trial was no longer just a courtroom proceeding. It became the beginning of Hollywood's reckoning and the unraveling of a silence long protected by fame, fear, and fortune. The courtroom remained suspended in a chilling stillness, no applause, no whispers, just the weight of what had been unveiled. Michael Jackson's legacy, once defined by genius and music, now hung beneath a fog of disturbing questions. That night, while headlines blazed with Janet Jackson's stunning testimony, the lights at the FBI's New York headquarters refused to dim. Inside Digital Storage Room 3, normally reserved for the gravest human trafficking investigations, agents pored over a new priority, 14 video files, each bearing no names, no timestamps, only cryptic codes like JJ07, NE12, MC19, stamped in bold, classified lettering. These weren't random strings. Each code represented a victim, a person caught in a vulnerable, often unconscious state, manipulated and recorded in what now appeared to be a long-running, systematic scheme built by Diddy and his collaborators. The hard drives Janet Jackson handed over were unlike anything the team had seen, heavily encrypted using top-tier, professional software. Once accessed, the files were named not with dates or labels, but fragments: darkness, Vegas, 427, eyes open, unconscious. What left the agents speechless was how precisely the footage aligned with Janet's sworn testimony. 12 of the 14 tapes revealed the same chilling scene: a white-walled room, black velvet curtains, dim lighting, a single fixed camera. The people on screen, sometimes tied down, often incoherent, were not acting. In over 80% of the recordings, Diddy's low, hoarse voice could be heard, occasionally laughing, always directing. One anonymous federal investigator, seasoned in trafficking cases, confessed this wasn't just depraved, it was structured. Operated like a business. Like a production company with a purpose. And the purpose wasn't simply pleasure, it was power. Control. The FBI concluded these tapes, which mostly featured celebrities, influencers, and insiders, were leveraged as tools of coercion. If released, they would destroy careers. But in private hands, they became instruments of domination, silencing dissent, forcing obedience, and directing careers like puppets. One particularly disturbing tape, labeled RD14, featured an underage Asian woman, stripped and commanded through a hidden speaker to perform explicit acts. At minute 11, she screamed, "I don't want to, I don't know who he is," but no one stepped in. The metadata chillingly read, "Use as tool. Deal later." It confirmed a dark theory: these tapes weren't just recorded, they were traded, perhaps even sold. At trial, Diddy's defense pushed to seal the tapes to protect identities. But prosecutors refused, stating, "These are not just videos. They are evidence of organized crime. The victims deserve to know." Among the 14 confirmed individuals, 3 world-renowned models, 2 featured in videos with Diddy and Jay-Z, and a then-rising singer. 6 of the victims weren't U.S. citizens, brought in under suspicious performance visas, a clue pointing to a global trafficking ring masked by the glamour of the music industry. In FBI Room 24B, an emergency session unfolded with officials from financial crimes, immigration, and even Interpol. This was no longer a scandal. This was a systemic abuse network. The pressing question now wasn't just what happened, but who helped make it happen. Forensic analysis traced one of the encrypted drives to a device in Malibu, California, an address long rumored to belong to a secret estate owned by Oprah Winfrey. Earlier in the trial, Diddy had named her as a central figure. While Oprah has yet to respond publicly, the FBI has issued a formal subpoena, confirming they now have evidence to investigate deeper. The case, once centered on one man's crimes, now teeters on the edge of exposing an empire built on silence, coercion, and manipulation hidden behind fame's dazzling curtain. As the shock from Janet Jackson's courtroom revelations rippled outward, the atmosphere around Hollywood shifted dramatically, from stunned curiosity to paralyzing fear. The media's tone changed overnight. Reporters, industry insiders, even former partygoers began to question their own memories. Had they ever unknowingly attended one of Diddy's gatherings? Had they been recorded? Were they next on the list? At the next morning session, the chief prosecutor confirmed their worst fears with a single, chilling statement: "We've decrypted only 14 codes so far." But the full list contained 78. Part 3: Diddy and Michael Jackson, a pact in the shadows. The investigation's darkest revelation yet stemmed from an event nearly forgotten by time: July 5, 2004. In a secluded mansion in Holmby Hills, Los Angeles, once owned by a legendary French director and now shrouded in 17-page NDAs prohibiting any disclosure for 50 years, a secret meeting took place between 2 of pop culture's most influential figures, Michael Jackson, newly returned from Bahrain, and Sean Combs, then still known globally as P. Diddy. The property was rented under the guise of an obscure entertainment company, and what happened inside would remain buried until now. FBI files now label the residence as the Black Room, and audio extracted from a recovered hard drive in the mansion's basement revealed that the 2004 meeting was just the beginning. Between 2004 and late 2006, at least 6 covert meetings occurred, all involving Jackson and Diddy. On 3 separate occasions, an unidentified woman with a Jamaican-American accent was heard on audio, discussing terms like rehearsal footage, PR leverage, and non-consensual deal cleanup, phrases now synonymous with coercion and cover-up. Janet Jackson, in supplemental testimony on day 32 of the trial, added another damning piece. She once saw her father receive a USB drive from Diddy during a 2005 celebration. When she asked what it was, he smirked and said, "A ticket to silence forever." That statement prompted a search warrant of Michael Jackson's old Neverland estate. Hidden beneath a wine cellar, agents discovered a safe containing a device encrypted with high-level German government-grade software. On it, an unreleased video surfaced, one that changed everything. The footage showed Diddy and Michael sitting across from one another in a dimly lit room, with 2 stone-faced men in sunglasses standing behind them. The room was quiet until Michael whispered, "We need an escape. If those tapes fall into the wrong hands, the empire collapses." Diddy leaned in and responded, "That's why I keep them. Not for money, for control. No one dares contradict you when they know there's evidence." Michael paused, then placed a hand on the table. "Then we are allies." The recording didn't end there. A wide shot revealed 3 separate cameras filming the conversation, proof that a third party was documenting everything. The questions now multiply. Who installed the cameras? Who controlled the recordings? And if Michael knew the truth, why didn't he destroy it? An FBI specialist explained, "People like Michael don't trust anyone. They keep evidence not to expose, but to survive." This insight painted both Jackson and Diddy as architects of a system where fear, not fame, ensured silence. Supporting this, a handwritten note found in the mansion listed cryptic payment entries like JL, 2M, WS, 1.5M, OW, 4M, YR, suggesting a coordinated effort to buy silence or guarantee compliance from individuals in the industry. But the most haunting evidence came in the final decoded audio. Michael's voice, low and steady, said, "If I go down, don't let those names go with me. They are all involved. They must be named." That moment didn't just shift the trial. It reshaped the narrative of an entire era where pop royalty forged silent alliances, not to preserve their art, but to protect a crumbling empire built on fear, leverage, and lies. The moment Michael Jackson's voice echoed in the courtroom, "They must be named," a terrifying possibility emerged. What if his death wasn't natural after all? Although previously ruled health-related, the FBI was now compelled to partially reopen the case. The room fell into an eerie silence as the jury watched the unreleased footage. No whispers, no gasps, only Diddy's eyes shifting briefly to his lawyer before locking back on the screen, cold and unreadable. When Janet Jackson returned to the stand, her words would soon headline every news outlet across the country. They thought they were gods. Untouchable. But because they thought that, they left traces. At 5:10 p.m., as the court recessed, FBI agents quietly exited the building carrying a black briefcase, sealed in red tape, marked sensitive, internal MJDI. Its contents, sources later revealed, could alter the trajectory of the entire case. Part 4, The Director Behind the Screen. Just days later, at exactly 2:27 p.m. on June 9, 2025, 3 FBI agents from Counterintelligence Team 9 executed a search warrant in Hidden Hills, California. The mansion was quiet, secluded, nothing unusual for a high-profile residence, until they reached the name at the top of the warrant, Armand Keller. Not a producer. Not a business executive. But an award-nominated documentary filmmaker celebrated for exposing truths of the human condition in collaborations with Netflix, HBO, and National Geographic. The irony was suffocating. In the basement, secured behind 3 layers of encrypted doors, agents found a gray, windowless room outfitted like a professional post-production bunker, 12 hard drives mounted on the walls, 2 isolated server systems, and elite editing equipment, including a red Komodo color processor, Avid software, and a Hollywood standard LUT panel. But what stopped them cold was a nondescript metal file cabinet. Inside, drawers were filled with timestamped logs and initials, entries like 031406, 11:27 p.m., NEEV. Using advanced decryption, the FBI linked the codes directly to video footage from Neverland, Holmby Hills, and Diddy's private estates, locations repeatedly cited in victim testimonies. It became undeniably clear, Keller wasn't just a passive observer. He was the designer, the director, the mind behind the entire production system disguised as interactive visual research. In classified testimony, a former assistant described how Keller choreographed the abuse like scenes in a film, feeding participants scripted lines, positioning cameras for emotional impact, even ensuring expressions he described as beyond human boundaries were perfectly captured. Nothing was spontaneous. Nothing was real except the suffering. Shockingly, many of these segments were later presented as high-concept art in European galleries, under titles like The Ego in its Primitive State or Body Detached from Soul. But the faces of victims, screaming, pleading, were never anonymized. By now, the FBI had no doubts. Armand Keller wasn't a mere collaborator, he was the visual brain of the entire network. His connection to Diddy dated back to 2003, when they reportedly met at a private event in Cannes. There, Keller had screened a covert documentary exploring artists using narcotics as creative liberation. It was then, insiders believe, that the recruitment began. This wasn't about art. It was about control masked in creativity. Exploitation sold as expression. And behind every carefully lit frame, every manipulated shot, lay a dark alliance between power, fame, and silence. The Diddy case, initially thought to be a personal scandal, quickly opened the door to a labyrinth of hidden power that had been buried for decades. The FBI investigation uncovered a sophisticated manipulation system that used artists' images as tools of control and blackmail. At the center was Armand Keller, a renowned director and Oscar nominee, who not only directed but designed the entire covert recording network, disguised as contemporary visual art. Data from a Swiss bank and the shell company Anthropos View revealed a series of post-production consulting payments funneled from major entertainment firms. A list of victims and associated individuals, including Jennifer Lopez, Will Smith, Beyoncé, and Steve Harvey, was found, annotated with phrases like "video handled, not released." A classified document decrypted at FBI headquarters in Washington revealed that 120 individuals, from politicians and media executives to major celebrities, were aware of or benefited from silencing witnesses. One of the most shocking revelations involved Oprah Winfrey, who was discovered to have participated in a 2020 video call with Anthropos View's post-production team, during which she stated, "If victims dare to speak out, we have the original footage to take them down." This bombshell statement triggered an interagency investigation and led to the suspension of over 30 senior officials across political and media sectors. The biggest shock came when the NSA's Juno Vault data archive was breached, revealing that some of the damning videos had not been encrypted by private firms but were originally processed by a government technology contractor. This raised disturbing suspicions that elements within the national security apparatus may have knowingly supported or turned a blind eye to the coercive network. Over $137 million was funneled through experimental film funds in Delaware, funds legally managed by the same law firm that once represented both Michael Jackson and Diddy. Even Janet Jackson, whose testimony sparked the investigation, had once been asked to sign a silent sponsorship agreement, which she refused. Her refusal led to her mysterious disappearance from the entertainment industry for years. When the FBI finally declared, "This is no longer about Diddy, this is about a systemic mechanism," the nation was forced to confront an uncomfortable truth. A shadow power structure had been operating for years, leveraging fame, enforcing silence, and escaping accountability through celebrity worship. And when Oprah disappeared aboard a signal-less, unregistered flight, the world realized this was no longer a theory, it was an escape. The question is no longer who did what, but who allowed them to do it, and for how long, in total silence. Thank you for watching the video. Please register, comment, leave your own opinion and follow the next developments. Thank you and see you again.